the kids to bed and I'm like, it's 9 a.m.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
is he?
So it's 25 past 8 at night at the moment.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Something a bit weird has happened with my audio, but I think we're now live on YouTube and recording as well. Hopefully the quality is a lot better for this as well for the screen shares. I know before we had to I know what's happened because I had it automatically opened the stream on YouTube. So I was listening to us in delay. Right, okay. So let me share the screen. Missy, before I do that, just is there anything particularly that you're blocked on and would like to have a look at?
I wouldn't mind talking broadly just about some basics, if you don't mind, about GraphQL.
No, feel free. That's what I'm very greedy, I'm going to say, and I do use these sessions more for my advantage than I should. But yeah, fire away.
Okay. Also, forgive me if my internet cuts out. They're doing some work in the building, so I'm on a hotspot, but it feels like it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay, so I'm working on a GraphQL endpoint to fetch all pipeline triggers, and then I need 3 mutations to add, update, and delete pipeline triggers. So I have the query to be able to fetch all pipeline triggers, and that's working at least locally and in the way I've implemented it. But to do the mutations, what I was just looking at is, let me try and pull it up actually.
For those of us, like the words pipeline and trigger are both familiar concepts and terms, but can you give us a step back to what, how will this be used, or what are pipeline like? Is it where you can trigger a pipeline via a schedule or via the API or via a...
Yes, I believe it's triggering it via the API. So there's currently a REST API that does this, and they're moving it to, or I'm moving it to a GraphQL, and then adding these other, well, I guess these are just to fetch it. This is adding it. There's a separate API that you can call it to actually enqueue and trigger a pipeline. So let me pull up the issue here real quick.
Yeah, that'll probably give us a bit more context.
And I can show in the UI actually where these actually exist as well. Okay. This, I don't have Discord open, so I'll pop it in the chat of Zoom if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the issue.
Morning, Raymond. Hey, folks.
Hello.
Hey, Raymond.
And let me see, I've got my GDK working out, but it's still booting. Give it a second here. Yeah, save, update, pipeline trigger mutations, which is a prerequisite to moving the pipeline trigger UI to view. It's currently in HAML. So this is why I was interested in the fork issue that Marco was working on as well, because once I get this GraphQL endpoint set up, then I can do the view portion.
You're just waiting for your GDK to come up to show us the UI, right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I could share mine. I've got my GDK up if you can point me to where. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I'm definitely not immediately. The concept just confuses me. Like I say, I kind of understand a pipeline trigger to be different ways to trigger a pipeline, via the API or via manually pressing a button or via pushing a commit, or so I don't quite follow what these are, but yeah, tell me where to go.
Okay, so go into a project like GitLab test.
Flights are
or that one.
My go-to for most testing. Whether it's a good example or not, I don't know. Now that's where I find out if GDK is playing ball or not. Yeah, we look all right. Yep.
Then you can go to settings in the bottom left, CI/CD. And once it loads, you'll see pipeline triggers. And if you click expand, then you'll be able to see whether you have some already set up or you can create a new one. And you create a token basically, and there's an owner, last use, several different fields. Yeah, so you don't have any,
Okay.
but you can add a trigger if you just type in a description and add. And then essentially the GraphQL endpoint that I have set up for the query fetches these. So it would fetch this one trigger at the moment.
Do you think of these as almost like webhooks that you can use to create pipelines in a project?
Ah, okay, cool.
So would this let you? So I was going to say, is this used when you have like two projects and one project needs to trigger another pipeline in a different project?
Yeah, that's one way you could use it.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. Use cases. I'm curious. I'm sure there are loads, but yeah, I like the idea of what you say. Maybe you've got something where when somebody posts a question on Discord, you want it to create an issue in GitLab, and I guess you could use a webhook in Discord to kind of ping one of these triggers that would then start a pipeline that does what it needs to do. Or
yeah, you could very much use these to sort of build up automations and do those things. If you've got automations sort of built as like atomic things within pipelines, then yeah.
Can you think, have you used them in the past, Raymond, anywhere to?
Not in that way, but I have used them from a point of view of, so we built a set of runners that would sort of manage themselves, and if one of the runners kind of felt unwell, for want of a better word, the particular OpenStack infrastructure that we were running on, every now and then the disk would go corrupted, and then it would remount root read only, in which case then things didn't work anymore. So there would be a job running on the runner checking to see if the disk was read only. If the disk was read only, it would then call a pipeline trigger. That pipeline trigger would then go and delete the runner that called it, like just blow the cloud host away and recreate a new one.
Nice, cool. So yeah, sorry, Missy, thanks for filling us in and giving us a bit of context. So we can see now, yeah, so we could go to edit, or you can change the name, okay, and you can delete, you can create, and obviously to populate this page you need the get. So they're the four kind of GraphQL API things. And you said you just had some sort of contextual questions, etc., or?
Yes, really basic stuff, excuse me. So just in implementing, I'll share my screen here. You cannot start screen share while the other. Okay, I'll do everything. The whole desktop. Okay. So I've just like thrown in some random code here from other pipeline triggers, or GraphQL mutations that I was looking at. And It's just in terms of like the setup of creating a new mutation. Like I created a folder, and then the three that I want to add are create, delete, and update. And then aside from creating these files, which it seems like are going to want to have like the different arguments that we pass in of what you need to add. So I assume for the pipeline trigger, that'll be the like the token or the name and the user or the owner. Aside from this, like what other elements do I need to add? Because I already created a pipeline trigger type and then a resolver for the query.
So did you say that you've already done the get?
Yes.
So you've had to create the pipeline trigger type as part of that, yes. I presume. Yeah, perfect, great.
Yeah.
Awesome, perfect.
So I think, I think what you would need in terms of the create would be the same sorts of things that you have when you create one currently via the UI or the REST API.
Okay, so just a description.
Yeah, maybe. I think the only things you really need there is any references, i.e. the sort of variables that you're passing into it. I think they call them references or fields.
So what I was going to try and find is essentially a couple of mutations that we've added recently. And by looking at one of those merge requests, you'll get a really good feel. If there isn't already a service, then you may need to create a service. If there's the mutation itself, where you have to mount that mutation, because again, it sounds silly, but just creating a mutation isn't enough in itself. It needs to be added somewhere as well. The testing that you might need as well.
Yeah.
So
that would be helpful if you find that.
Yeah, so adding a new one, as you saw there, just actually takes the description. You
Just
don't
the
actually
description.
add anything else. You don't actually add anything else in there. So all you would need for adding a new one, I would imagine, would be the path to the project and the description of the
I think you're probably right. Yeah. And as Raymond said, if it's currently working using the REST API, then it might be worth having the REST API file, whatever you want to call it. It'd normally be like lib API.
Entity is the word I think you're looking for.
Well, the entity is the more like the GraphQL type. I'm interested in the actual.
Yeah, I mean the REST entity. You saying having a look at the REST entity and seeing what that does? Or?
Yeah, more the endpoint than the entity itself. But yeah, because that will define the arguments in a say similar way. But so I've got an add mutation. I'll drop in the chat. Now this was a little bit different, I think, because I believe that we had to. I think we created like the service at the same time, and I think you're already going to have a pipeline trigger service or pipeline trigger create service, pipeline trigger destroy service, etc. So yours is going to be significantly easier than this. So this bit you'll already have. I'm just going to see if I can find the where the REST API lives at the moment. Is it using REST API at the moment, or is it just using, or is there? Let me Google to see if there's a REST API. Might be just using.
I believe there is.
Might be using controller directly, but I couldn't find anything looking for pipeline trigger, but might be called something different, I guess.
Just trigger in some places, or it's in the CI space, CI trigger sometimes.
Okay. Oh yeah,
API, CI triggers.
CI
there we
triggers.
go.
Yep, spot on. Yeah.
Where did it go?
I can send you the path in the chat if you need it.
Thank you. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, so I opened him up quickly, and
yep.
So you got creates a trigger. Yeah, and there you go. The only param is description. Now that's because these work slightly different, because this is actually already in the context of the project, so you kind of don't need to pass the project reference in. But that kind of makes me reasonably confident that all you need is the project. You can either use the ID or full path, depending on what you think is going to be easier. And then so
is there a standard? Sorry, is there a standard in the GraphQL about using an ID or a path?
Good question. We should probably look at.
Do you normally support both, and you have to provide one of them?
I've never seen that, actually. That would be the really nice way to do it, to make it really easy on the end user. So regardless of what they've got, they can use the API. But I've tended to, again, I guess, be a bit lazy and sort of say, well, if I'm building something from scratch, then I'd probably use the ID, where I've got control over what I can provide. Whereas I'm sure I've done some recently where I've used full path. So for the achievement stuff, we've used like the namespace full path rather than the namespace, or have we? I might be lying.
I think
actually.
full path will be easier for end users. Generally,
Yeah.
I guess it depends how you're using it. Programmatically, using the ID is probably easier.
Yeah, I think it'd be like slightly, well, marginally better, like from an indexing point of view. But so yeah, that MR anyway should give you a good idea of what you need to. Let me just go back to it. So you won't need to make, there's a controller change in there that was to support file uploads via GraphQL. Steer as clear from those as you can. The actual mutation itself, in this instance, you might need a base mutation, like you might want a base in there. It depends how much they've all got in common with each other. So yeah, the mutation itself, you should already have your pipeline trigger type. So I don't think you're going to need a new type.
That I already created.
Perfect. Then you have to, where I said about mounting the mutation, that's in this MR where you can see the, I'll just share mine quickly. So it's as simple as, yeah, mounting the mutation in the mutation type.
Oh, I see.
So adding your new one in there. I would definitely recommend doing these separately as well, by the way.
Okay.
Separate MRs for the create, update, and delete. I mean, you don't have to. Feel free to try doing them all together, but just, yeah, the smaller the MR, the smaller the iteration, the kind of easier it is to get through the review process. So no changes to the type. Hopefully there's already a policy that you can use. Again, this achievement stuff was all created from scratch. So you shouldn't need to do the services or the policies. So you don't need that. Don't need that. So you've got the mutation itself, mounting the mutation in there. Feature flag. I don't think you would want it. No, I don't think you want a feature flag. Sometimes you might consider like flagging this as like alpha, the GraphQL fields and mutations. It just allows us to make some changes without having to, there's the whole kind of non-breaking changes where if you want to make a breaking change, you need to wait a major release. But because you're implementing this from scratch, you might want to just mark it as alpha for a couple of minor releases just while it's kind of getting all locked in and finalized. The documentation is great because it's automatically created. I guess you found that when you did the, yeah, great. And then the spec.
Oh yeah, the specs are difficult because there's so many GraphQL helper files. It gets a bit convoluted.
So again, you won't need to worry about that. You won't need to worry about that. So we favor request specs, and this is in the so GitLab GraphQL development style guide. Okay. Just give me the there we go. This is what I mentioned before. So anything marked as alpha is exempt from the deprecation process. So it might be handy to mark them as alpha, maybe at least until you get the UI updated to start using the new GraphQL, like GraphQL backends. Fields. So I don't think we really need a feature flag. This page is huge. Mutations. I'm wanting to look for somewhere where I think we should say that we prefer tests. So here under testing, prefer request specs using the full API endpoint or going through this. Prefer that to unit tests. So I think I've always done both. So I've created a spec for the mutation itself and a request spec, which is this one here. I would be really interested to know if we are happy to sort of leave this one out entirely. Someone who understands the triangle better than me but might be able to explain this better. But from what I understand, like the unit tests in so testing the mutation directly is just a bit too I don't know what you want to call it, like pipe dreamish. You're in like you're better off doing the request spec. It tests a bit more. You can miss if you don't have a request spec and you do the simple mutation spec, you can miss certain bits and pieces. So yeah, for some reason we favor these ones. So might be worth trying just going with a request spec and asking the question if you actually need a test for the mutation directly.
Okay.
And then you don't have any types. So yeah, I think you'll end up with the mutation itself. That's one change. The mounting the mutation, that's the second file. Don't need any of that. The docs change will actually be automatically updated, but that's the third one. And then the request spec itself, and maybe mutations. You might get away with as few as 4 file changes for this.
Ah, okay. That's simpler than I thought.
Fingers crossed, yeah. And then, yeah, hopefully once the good thing is once that's successful, then I think you'll be able to reuse that same kind of
for the other two
recipe exactly. And you might be comfortable enough at that point to combine those two in a single MR.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much for the direction on that.
No
And
worries.
answering those questions.
Obviously ping any of us on Discord if you've got any more specific questions.
Okay.
So let me close that. So the thing that I was hoping to have a bit of a look at, but I've got to remind myself where I got to, and I was struggling a little bit. So I was hoping to add webhooks for reactions for emojis. So at the moment we've got quite a lot of things covered. So when you make a change or add merge requests or issues, when you push commits, when you add comments or notes, yeah, there's webhooks for the majority of actions, if that's the right term in GitLab, but there's nothing for reactions or emojis at the moment. So we have a really good use case ourselves actually, where the GitLab bot, after a merge request is merged or closed, it asks you to respond and react and say, how was your experience? And in the most basic way we ask to react is with like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you reply with a comment, then we can pick that up using a webhook. But if you just react, we don't have any way to kind of pick up on that at the moment. The problem is I couldn't find a webhook, a new type of webhook that had been added like recently. It was quite a long time ago. The most recent one was added, and there was quite a lot to be changed. So I tried to do a bit of a copy paste exercise, adding the emoji hook. We also have webhooks at both project level and group level, so there's a bit of duplication there. So I think the best bet is probably for me to, I guess, have a look at the MR and where is it exploding. I'm sure it'll be test based, although interestingly, does it say there's no, I can't see the pipeline here. Skip the pipeline on the most recent push. I think that's because I just did a rebase. I think the basic functionality was working, but maybe my webhook payload was a bit minimal, like missing some stuff that I'd really want in there. And I'm sure, oh, actually, the pipeline was passing with warnings, which is fairly reassuring. So I'm just going to have a quick look to see. We've got a webhook set up.
Until you rebase on master.
What's that, sorry?
Until you rebase on master.
Well,
No,
we'll
joking.
see. We'll see. So yeah, it looks like I've got my new emoji events tick box here. I've got a webhook set up for emoji events on this project. So away I go. I guess I can go into here and see. Okay, so there's actually none in there, which is interesting, but I think they drop off fairly quickly. So maybe we'll really try and break it, and we'll go in and we'll react to.
Or why don't you just try hit the test on the webhook test? Have
I
you got
might
a list?
do
Have you
that
got your
as
listener
well.
running?
I might do that as well. Well, we don't actually need the listener. Yeah, good idea. What that interestingly is testing completely different stuff. So
Okay, 'cause, yeah, that's going to fail because it can't reach.
that's fine. No,
that.
that's fine.
Okay, so you just want to see if the webhook's firing and failing.
I think, yeah, I'm really interested in the request itself. Yeah, and I think this is probably what I need to build on top of, because at the moment it's saying this is the emoji. This is, if it is awarded or maybe revoked, but I don't know if I even got that far yet. It might be awarded or deleted or destroyed or something like that. But then this is where it gets a bit, like we need to beef this up a bit. Like normally, I think if you're not familiar with comments, they provide webhook.tonight. Nice.
So yeah, if you point your webhook to that, you can actually receive your webhook events.
Awesome.
So if you wanted it just to
I must
play.
admit that's where I've used Pipedream a lot in the past. I know we've talked about that a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if I do a comment one, just so we can see, I guess it's not gonna fire. It doesn't make. Seems a bit weird to have all these options available when this webhook doesn't actually fire on comments. I'm just going to see what happens if I. Okay, weird. But yeah, the reason I wanted to do that was just to demonstrate that the request has, the user is fleshed out. We've got an object kind event type. The project is fleshed out. And then the almost parent object is fleshed out as well. So if you're adding a comment to an issue, then you have this issue with all the issue details. If you're adding a comment to a merge request, then you get the same. So I think that needs to be beefed up quite a bit. But it's a good start. I am going to just add a reaction, and I'm also going to, I wanted to remove one, but that wasn't me that added that one, Etta Brown. So let's just, oh God, how does this UI work?
Can you just remove your basketball again?
Yeah, that should work. That should work. Keep it simple. Now, what I was finding was that the, I think it must be like a background job that processes these. And I was finding that sometimes you had to wait a while. So yeah, we've still only got those two at the moment. I'll probably wait a couple of minutes while we're looking at some other stuff. If they don't appear, then I might either probably do a GDK restart. Sometimes that causes background jobs to hurry up.
It could also be because it's trying to do resolutions and stuff, and those things are then failing. So there's there's another because the webhook address that you've given doesn't exist. That could add chaining and time and other
Absolutely.
things to
Absolutely.
the failure.
So it looks like the, I don't know, kind of part of the guts of this is this emoji builder. So we could maybe try and have a look at the note builder and see how that's built out. So we take the note attributes. Ruby Pro can hopefully help me understand what this does. Yeah. So we've got safe hook attributes. So that includes, so I can't see in there like where we get the issue or the merge request, like the parent things added in. Note builder, base builder. So I'm intrigued. Where they come from. Okay. Okay, cool. So back to the note builder quickly. Might see, I don't know how easily I can call that, but I am curious how that's doing what it's doing. So note data is hook data. Hook scope, note project. Okay, that's interesting. So it gets the note hook data and then actually executes project hooks with the note data. So did it pass? Hook scope is note hooks. Okay, interesting. Triggered hooks. Hook scope. Oh wow. This is going to fry my brain for sure. Meanwhile, has this done anything? Doesn't look like it. Let's see if I can tell if anything's stuck. Background jobs.
I know webhooks do get disabled after a certain number of failures, but I would expect it to be more than 2.
And it's normally a little bit better. Yeah, I'm just going to do a quick GDK restart. I don't know whether I should do it with just the background. No, just do the whole thing for now. Yeah, it's normally reasonably good at telling you. I think it's up here that there's a warning. I think at one point it was quite
Yeah.
harsh though. I think it might be around about five hooks or something like that. But yeah. I'll let that restart and see what happens. Weirdly, that tends to normally, once it's restarted, they magically appear like they were just stuck in the queue, and restarting the background work has kind of brought them back from the dead. So yeah, that's interesting. So we're going projects triggered hooks.new triggered.add hooks. Wow. And where does hooks come from? That's confusing. Okay, who can see what I'm not seeing?
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah, so you're seeing the same thing as me. We're
Yep.
accessing something. Yeah, I can't see where.
Yeah, that's some magic.
Yeah, there's not
But
a
what
dev
is
hooks
this?
or something, is there?
What is this object descended from? Oh, you're just on project. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just
So then it's
application record.
then it's coming through from one of those includes. It's probably that one.
That's what hooks in.
No, but I tell you what we can do, back to the Rails console. That'll tell us. You might even find has webhooks, maybe extends. No, it doesn't look like it does.
What if you just search the whole project for def hooks?
Good idea. Nothing.
Weird.
Yeah, isn't it just?
The mystery mixed in.
So if I go p equals project dot find 6 p dot hooks.
Must be a relationship.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. Makes sense. That's yeah. Yeah. So it's just another model. So yeah, it's a relationship to the project hooks that are configured. Yeah. Of course it is. Thank you.
Where's that relationship defined though? Somewhere in there, surely.
So it would be a has many. Yeah, I think it's all of these. Has many, although it wouldn't be those
And then
ones.
does it combine?
There we
Has
go.
many
Oh,
hooks.
there we go.
Yeah.
Class name project hook.
Yeah. Missing the obvious. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've had, what was it, execute. God, execute. So that looks like the trick. We don't actually want to execute an emoji hook exactly. We want to execute a project hook. The only thing I need to think about is that the emoji might not be on a project. So I'll need to kind of make sure I handle, if it's on an epic, then there might be this execute hooks in the epic. Models epic. Be the EE version we need. Why can't I find you? There. No. Okay, that's interesting. I wonder when we add comments to an epic. I presume that there is that they do get picked up. But I start simple, I guess. Okay, those never appeared on there. That's interesting. Now I've restarted it. I'm going to do it again and just wait a minute and see if it appears. But okay, so where I'm calling, I'm going to have to look at the MR to see where I'm actually calling the. So we've not got one in there, fair enough. Right, so I used the service as the place as an add and a destroy service for award emojis. And then in here, I have to create execute hooks. I guess that comes from the base service. Yeah. So this is where I should actually be doing project execute hooks. Where did I find it? And then we pass in the hook data and the hook scope. So the hook data. Hook data, the action.
Just check you've put hook date there, not hook data.
Thank you. The action. And then we can pass the hook date or data. Probably just could have copied and pasted that straight out of there, to be honest. But just see. I shouldn't have saved that because now I'm going to have to wait for Ruby to recompile to. We're coming to the end of the session anyway. I'm just going to wait to see if if this appeared, and B, maybe just to try it again with this change. I might even sometimes I'll call the awards service maybe via the Rails console, because if it errors out, I get to see it. Okay, that's good. At least this fired last time. But yeah, it kind of confirmed my suspicion about it being a bit on the min side. So yeah, I don't really know. I don't think this is going to work because somehow the project execute hooks, triggered hooks, just execute. Yeah. System hook service to execute hooks. I'm interested to know where it where it gets. Because I could understand if we call this, it would have the project information added into the hook data, which is great. That's helpful. But we've got another level, right? We've got if you're awarding an emoji to an issuable, an issue or a merge request, then we would want that information in there. So I'm intrigued to know. I can't remember where I found post-process service, wasn't it? So execute note hooks. Turn unless note.project. Yeah, I don't really know how that would work. So the question is, can I, if I get issue equals issue.last, and then how do I use the add service? So, oh, geez. Need to pass it the awardable, which is the issue.
A typo in there, just heads up.
Go on.
Award emojis. There's a P,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Just before that fails.
And I better check what the actual. Yeah, basketball should work. And the current user. Awesome. And that's why it's better to do these things through the Rails console sometimes rather than testing through the UI. So I've tried to access project, but it should probably be the awardable project. I should be able to check that out by doing award emoji last awardable. Yep. Project. Awesome. So I need to do a quick reload. What's wrong with that? What am I missing? Oh, reload. And if I don't know if I really need to repopulate these things, so I think I will. Name has already been taken. Awesome. Okay, so I'd better just remove. Where did I see? So I could try the, is it destroy service or delete service? Okay, well, it successfully destroyed it. No errors came up in the meantime. I do have to shoot in a second. I'm just gonna say. Okay, I'm not overly surprised. There's nothing in there. Whether that's because it queued or it needed a restart or whether it just failed. But I would have expected an explosion if it did fail. Right, I'm going to jump off now, but I will share my progress later on today. Thanks all for joining.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.